this document. It's very interesting. There are 13, I think it's 10 in this one. So every passing year, in a way, gives us an assurance that our constitution is getting more and more entrenched. It gets very difficult to uproot it if it survives for long. That's what even Tom Ginsburg also says. If the constitution survived for about 50 years, it's unlikely that they would fall. Otherwise, in the first 50 years, they're more likely to fall. Constitution has completed 76 years now. We are shortly entering the 77th year on 26th of January. And every passing year also provides us with an opportunity to reflect on how much progress that we have made in achieving the constitutional goals. It is a very ambitious project. Its constitution is not just about creating institutions, establishing centers of power, conferring on them power, and providing for certain processes. It's a much larger project that is intended to achieve. And also to think about the challenges that one has to face in making further progress in realizing the constitutional goals. In that way, it is an important opportunity for us to reflect on the working of our constitution. But at the same time, if you look back, the history of constitution making in India, there was a demand for a very long time, which was part of the India's independence movement, for creation of a separate constituent assembly. That's what we have seen Gandhi and Nehru urging for it. And Nehru had categorically said on several occasions that the multifarious problems of India can be resolved only and only if Indians are allowed to frame the constitution of their own. There should not be any outsiders. And ultimately, this demand was needed to few months before the India got independence, and the Constituent Assembly was created through the Cabinet Mission proposal. That was the British creation. But the Cabinet Mission proposal, at that point in time, of course, if you look at it seems that the British still then had not accepted the idea of dividing India, partitioning of India and creating two separate independent dominions. The idea was to have a constituent assembly for the whole of India. And that's why initial proposal had 389 members, which included even the people from Pakistan, that part as well. And ultimately, the partition happened. And one of the reasons why the partition happened, perhaps, it's not the only reason in my understanding, is that the Cabinet Mission proposal, it did not only provide for creation of the Constituent Assembly. They also, in a way, suggested what is called a broad basis for the future Constitution of India, where they said that the center should be very weak center with only few subject matters, and the provinces should be much stronger, and the provinces with the freedom to form the groupings of their own. They contemplated the three layers of governments. There is a state government, provinces, and then there is a federal government, union government, and in between, some of the provinces could come together and form a group of their own. And they even contemplated enacting of a three levels of constitution, the provincial constitution, the group constitution, as well as the Constitution of India. And that was not acceptable to the Indians. Many of the prominent leaders among the Congress have rejected this idea. And even Gandhi said, there is no take it or leave it policy over there in the Cabinet Mission proposal. And Nehru said, all that we are agreeing to is that we are entering into the Constituent Assembly in terms of the Cabinet Mission proposals and to nothing else. We are not bound by anything else. And that was completely rejected. If at all the broad basis that they suggested were accepted, probably it would have been, agreeable for the Muslim League to enter into the Constituent Assembly, because then they could have, provinces would have been more stronger. They could have formed a groupings of their own based on whether consisting of those states where the Muslims were majority. But since that was rejected completely by the members of the Congress, that the Muslim League finally said that they would not enter into the Constituent Assembly. Even after arbitrary resolution was moved, there was a discussion for a long time, and some of the members in the Constituent Assembly even suggested, let us not take up any important issues till the time Muslim League joins the Constituent Assembly. They were waiting for the Muslim League to join the Constituent Assembly, but the Muslim League refused to join the Constituent Assembly, and ultimately partition happened, and then the Constituent Assembly strength got reduced. And in the process, it's also interesting for perhaps, Ambedkar also lost his seat. Ambedkar's entry into the Constituent Assembly was very difficult. Initially, because the election to the Constituent Assembly, as well as the British provinces were concerned, were held on the basis of from the provincial legislative assemblies that were elected few months before. And Ambedkar belonged to the state of Maharashtra, and he had a scheduled caste federation versus political party. They did not have enough number in the Maharashtra provincial assembly. And he contested unsuccessfully, did not get elected. He could not enter into the Constituent Assembly. Then he was invited by one of his friends, Jogindernath Bandal, to West Bengal. And in West Bengal, he contested the election, and he forged the alliance with Muslim League in West Bengal. And they got Ambedkar elected into the Constituent Assembly. He entered the Constituent Assembly, but because of the partition, he lost his seat again. And then later, I think it was Jaikar or so who was made to resign from Maharashtra, and then Ambedkar got elected with the support of the Congress. So there was the Constituent Assembly, no doubt, was a Congress-dominant assembly, but they have taken care to ensure that the people of all views and ideologies enter into the Constituent Assembly. There were many members, like Ambedkar was a non-congressman, Shyam Prasad Mukherjee was a non-congressman. They were all elected into the Constituent Assembly and with the support of the Congress. And ultimately, the Constituent Assembly began its function. It started mainly with the passing of the objective resolution. And if you look at the process in brief, what has happened was that there were several committees that were constituted. Several committees' reports were presented to the Constituent Assembly. And based on the reports submitted by the several committees, the constitutional advisor, B.N. Rao, was asked to prepare a preliminary draft. He has compiled all the reports of the committees and prepared the preliminary draft, which was given to the drafting committee to finalize. And when the drafting committee has finalized the report, it was presented in the Constituent Assembly on 4th of November 1948. And what is interesting is about the Indian Constitution and the constitution making process is that when the draft was presented in the Constituent Assembly, there were more than 7,000 amendments that were moved to the draft constitution. More than 7,000 amendments were presented, out of which 2,000 plus amendments were actually moved. And there were extensive debates and discussions that are held on each of those amendments. And it is the constitution that we see today is the outcome of this extensive deliberative process. It is often said that the constitution making process in India represents the highest benchmark of public discourses in the country. Not before, not after there was such a discourse that was said. And it is all documented in 13 volumes of the Constituent Assembly that you can see. But the quick look, you can watch these episodes, the 10 episodes of Shyam Benegal's and Samvidhan to get an idea of it. So this is how our constitution was actually made. And if you look at the, it's so, if you start reading the Constituent Assembly debates, I think Dr. Nupur read all the volumes recently, the debates would come alive in a sense. It's so lively to read, it's very engaging. You can, if you are really interested, I think our library also has a copy of the Constituent Assembly debates that you can take a look. And if anybody wants to have a greater knowledge of the constitution making, they should also read, in addition to that, the B.N. Shivra's Framing of India's Constitution, select documents, where you'll find all the reports of all the committees that were constituted, the initial draft of B.N. Rao, the draft by the drafting committee, and then you can read the Constituent Assembly debate to get some picture of it. But generally it is also said that the constitution of any country is always in the process of making. It is never made at once. We did not complete the making of our constitution on the 26th of November 1949. It is still in the process of making. Every country, time and again revisits, bring reforms into the constitutional framework as for the needs of the hour. And our constitution has seen far too many amendments. In fact, more than 100 amendments have taken place into the Constituent Assembly. It is still in the process of making, not only through the process of amendment, but also through the judicial interpretations. That's another way of making changes to the Constitution. And in a way, Constitution is being made and remade, reformed over a period of time. As a result, today we say the Constitution, as we understand in 2025, is not the way the Constitution was understood in 1950 or 1960s. You can take up some examples of the provisions like Article 21 of the Constitution, which has had a very little significance in the 1950s because of the particular way in which it came to be interpreted by the Supreme Court. And now this appears to be one of the most important provisions. So it's important to look at the journey of constitution making, and even the initial process itself is so exciting if you look at. These kind of occasions, in a way, are an opportunity for us to take stock of what was the process that was followed and what is the process that is now being followed even when we try and make changes to the constitutional process. And are we actually going on the lines that the Constitution of India has mandated us to go, in the sense that there are certain provisions in the Constitution, certain goals, like something like securing social justice to everyone. We seem to be actually going in an opposite direction. One of the important goals that is set out is to reduce inequalities in income and wealth. But if you look at the statistics, increasingly the concentration of income and wealth is more in 2025 than in 1947, 1950. There is this paper by the Inequality Lab, Thomas Piketty and many others have written about India, which clearly shows that how inequalities are actually growing. There is reduction of inequality between 1950 to 1980. But from 1980 onwards, that actually the inequalities are growing. And it is much more than what it was in 1950s. So these are some of the concerns probably we should reflect on when we talk about constitutional goals and how much of progress that we have so far made and in what directions we are going. In some aspects, I would say that we are actually going in a reverse direction. So this is where I think we need to pause and reflect. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my big thoughts. And I must congratulate Kapil for taking this initiative. Kapil, in fact, went to the chairperson asking what are the plans of the center.